let's talk about Martine Rose Fall Winter 24. As you guys know, Martine Rose is certainly one of my favorite fashion designers in fashion. If you want to know more about her background, I've made many videos on her work, and Understitch also has a really amazing video on kind of like the background of Martine Rose. So definitely check that out. But to talk about kind of where her inspiration points come from, she's very inspired by British culture in all its forms, I can put it that way, because she looks at themes of things like rave culture, which is inspired by her love of raving from when she was a kid. She's always talking about like her sister and her cousin and how they got her into raving and stuff like that. She's also talking about, you know, politics and activism in the UK. I reviewed her Spring Summer 20 show many years ago, where she was talking about the UK leaving the EU, and she had a commentary on that through clothes. She's also inspired by the uniforms of everyday people in London. So sometimes she creates characters of people that she sees in London on the runway. So you see the guy, the business guy that works in the city, wearing his suit with his briefcase. You also see, you know, the guy that's like just come from a rave and is heading back home after a crazy sesh. So she has all these different characters, and there's that British humor even in her ad campaigns. You'll see people just posing in some fish and chip shop, run in some random place, or standing beside like a pie and mash stand. Almost like very authentic Britishness to everything she does. The fact that she'll have runway shows in some random market that she used to buy, you know, Jamaican patties from. Like that is the Martine Rose aesthetic and idea. And a lot of even the silhouettes are inspired by her Jamaican heritage to a point, but also British history and how that merges together. So, for example, you see from Martine Rose's tailoring, it's very boxy. The lapels are massive. If you look at the Windrush generation and what they were wearing back then, it was a lot of these boxy suits with big lapels. That is also like a very traditional British way of doing tailoring. So, yeah, that's kind of like a rundown on what Martine Rose does and her aesthetic. But anyway, Dami, did you see her latest show, and what did you think if you saw it?
You know I did. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It's a good show. It's a really good show. Do you want to get the show up quickly?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the screen now.
Like it's very, very 80s inspired. Let me look at my notes. So I think Martine Rose is one of those people that pushes menswear forward. She's very culture and art centric, not so much on the business front. As her saying that she said several things about not doing shows, right? And she has
Yep.
protested against doing shows. For
Part of
10
it is
years
to do with
now.
money, though. Part of it is to do with
Yes.
like funds.
So as I was talking about that intersection, that delta of fashion business, that of fashion, which is business, culture, and art. She has the fashion, the culture and art side down, but then when it comes to the business, even though she is one of the more profitable people as part of the group that she's part of now, um, that notwithstanding, she has afforded herself a lifestyle of being able to not do shows, which is very valuable, right, to her in particular. However, when she does do shows, like it's valuable now, it wasn't valuable in the beginning, but when she does do shows, um,
Yep.
they end up like this, like, and they have weight and they have value and they extend culture and give you a level of authenticity that you don't otherwise see in fashion.
Actually, I haven't seen it yet. It's my first time watching it, but I mean, Martine is personally my goat. Yeah, very cultured, and also I love how like actually wearable her collections are as well. Um,
Yeah.
and just like how vast, kind of like what you guys were saying, just like her reference like scope is just like so vast, and that is because she has like that, you know, life experience, I like to call it. Yeah, the looks to me so far are super wearable, and yeah, I love anything that Martine does. Anything that she does, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
She has a richness to her referencing, right? And she's referencing the 80s. And there are two looks that remind me or are fully reminiscent of Bobby and Whitney, right? And
Mm.
I enjoy them so much. And it's so cool. And she loves that style of music. She loves Prince. Like I was just watching her I believe it was Fashion Radio by Show Studio. Um and they were talking about music, and yeah, so it was just one of those things where her rave culture, and just the essence, like it's the essence, it's British, you get me? It's like, yeah,
British, mate.
British, without the T. The T's only for is for crumpets, bro. That's why. You get me?
Yeah, I think backstory to this runway show for people that don't know. So the original show was held in London, and it was just like a very intimate group of like Martine Rose's friends, family, critics, journalists, just like a very intimate space. And kind of Martine Rose wanted it to kind of be like the models to be comfortable and for it to be kind of like a show, and people are like, having character on the runway and those sort of things. And she also told people that they're not allowed to bring their phones, or they're not allowed to bring out their phones. So that way people actually focus on the clothes, which is a very Martine Rose thing to do, because Martine Rose is more about real life, about everyday people every day. And so I love that, because sometimes you look at runway shows and it's like, are people actually looking at the show? Like everyone's just like getting their content for TikTok and Instagram stories and reels and stuff. And I'm definitely complicit in this, by the way. So it's always refreshing to see people actually taking in the clothes. Like obviously the audio is muted, but people are actually cheering and like laughing and like having really fun. It was like really, really fun. Way more fun than your normal runway show where everyone's just so serious. Everyone's trying to look so chic. There's no noise, pin drop silence, all that sort of stuff. So that was really nice. And then for Paris, so this happened on the 6th of January in London. Then for Paris Fashion Week, she had kind of like a video of the show as a presentation. And then she also had a private kind of re-showing of the collection too. So that's kind of like the story, the backstory going on with the clothes. And in terms of like the inspiration point of this collection, it's actually just the study of individual ways of wearing clothes. So from the gestures that people have to the movements to their mannerisms. So you see so many of those different mannerisms in this collection. You see blankets that have been sewn into kind of like a half jacket and dress. It kind of looks like, when you wear half of your jacket on and you're walking. Or there's even a piece, I think you'll see it later, that's a reference to when you're hot in a club, or when you're just too hot or uncomfortable and you take your shirt off and you tie it around your waist, or you tie a jacket around your waist. Those kind of ideas, which goes back to the mannerisms and kind of what people do with their everyday clothing. So that's really what this collection is. And you see all those different references, even down to, there's actually a blazer, which you also see, where the lining is extended out of the jacket. So it looks like a cuff, but it's actually just the inner lining of the jacket that's been extended further to mimic like a shirt cuff that's supposed to go past the blazer. That was really interesting. So she has these really intelligent ways of playing with everyday clothing and just menswear in general that makes everything just so exciting and so fun in a way. Like even look at the way the models just like spin, like it's fun.
You see this guy, I follow him on Instagram. He's sartorially excellent. I believe he's from South Africa. I hope I'm not getting the place wrong. But he has a podcast also, and he is him. He's him for real. Like everything he's doing, he does that on Instagram. Let me get his Instagram, but he's him. Like, no. That's amazing. Like I saw him and I was like, bro, I follow him. But yeah, that's what I have to say.
I love the blazers. I love that the shoulder pads are like back in too.
Yeah.
I see that from her a lot. It gives like a certain like, I don't know, like attitude and playfulness that like, I don't know, I haven't seen in a few years. I feel like the only one who like really shows like the super serious shoulder is like Rick, but it's nice to see like Martine do like her own.
Yeah, this is the piece that's inspired by like things that you tie around your body, like a jacket you take off and tie around.
Yeah.
So she has these like stationary knots at different parts of the coat. Very, very interesting. And even I think in the show notes, she said that the color palette is inspired by like the 90s garage scene and what people are wearing in Camden. Now, for my non-UK people, Camden is like, Dami, how do you describe Camden is like a very hippie area of London. It's kind of where people have dressed in a very hippie way, but it's kind of changing now. It's becoming really gentrified. So a lot of designers are re-referencing how Camden used to be, and like back in the 90s, the early 2000s, what people used to wear. People's clothes used to be really interesting. There used to be like these like market stalls where people just used to sell clothes on the street in Camden. It still is like that. Parts of it are still like that, but it's slowly becoming gentrified, and very soon we won't even recognize it anymore. So kind of just to explain kind of where that reference comes from. No, not Camden, New Jersey. No. Camden in London. Someone said they're thinking of black aunties in the 90s. Yeah, that's kind of what Martine is going for anyway. That's like, she references that time period a lot, the 80s and the 90s in Britain, because that's when she was growing up. She references that all the time. Yeah, a lot of bootleg stuff is in Camden as well, like the market stores. But yeah, Dami, how would you describe like Camden to our majority American audience? Camden, London, not New Jersey.
It's like there is it's like Soho in America. Like Soho. Or like actually it might even,
I feel like Soho in New York is, yeah, because Soho in New York is a bit more corporate than
what's it called
Camden.
Again? Where's the wharf? Like America has a wharf. I forgot what it's called, but it's like it begins with a C. Like, or New York has a wharf. It begins with a C. It's like that's actually Staten Island, like a bit of that. So it's like the people that use drugs. That is like Soho-ish. Well, our Soho as well. To be fair, our Soho. But well, the Camden that she's referencing is that, right? So there will be market stalls, people that like sell rings and sell, and there's thrift shops over there. It's like, and plus it's like this big road. Like what people think of Camden is this big road, right? And then there's places off there, so that there's a ferry that goes through Camden, and all of these other things. But like, because there's the hood part of Camden, and then there is like what people
the more gentrified,
yeah. So that's what they're referencing. They're referencing the Camden market. So it's like a very stylish marketplace. I would say that's what people are referencing. But like, if like people don't care who you are, how you identify.
Khalif, where he said fashion Roadman is wearing this, black and brown people are not wearing this thrift shop. So I don't know where. I think you're American, and I think, like I said earlier, like I don't think her market has properly extended to America yet. But in the UK, I can assure you that there's many black and brown people wearing Martine Rose, like a lot of people. In London, there's people that wear it all the time, literally everywhere you go. Every time I leave my house, I see someone wearing Martine Rose in London, especially if you're in like a more trendy area like Soho, Camden, those kind of, somewhere in Central.
Go far, though. Like literally, Kendrick said, "Martine when I board jets." Which Martine did you think he was talking about?
Yeah, Kendrick does actually wear a lot of Martine. I just remembered.
Literally,
he does.
Like his big stepper store. He wore Martine. That was Martine. Like
Drake wears Martine as well.
Drake, Westside Gun. Like you don't need to go far, like at all. But yeah, that's a bit. See what I mean about. Never mind. Because if I start actually going in on fashion people, because what I did earlier was not going in on fashion people. But yeah, that's wild. Your reference point is different.
But yeah, it is still very London centric, but there are people, black and brown people across the world that wear it.
I protect Martine at all costs. I can't lie to you, man.
Yeah.
You can't really say anything.
It might look like, to be honest, the thrift and fine wear is not far-fetched. It might look like thrift and fine wear because she's referencing the 80s and the 90s. And when you go to a thrift store, the jackets that you're seeing are from that time period. So it makes sense. It's not like what he's saying is wrong. But the black and brown people, I beg to differ on that one.
I just think in the US, like her clothes like aren't as like distinguishable and like recognizable like for the average person here in the US. Like I feel like only like New York, maybe LA? Like, will you actually see somebody like wearing it?
I've seen people wear it in New York, but the thing is, I haven't been in New York long enough to just say that, oh yeah, people in New York wear it too. But I have seen people wear it. Do I know how like often they wear it, or if it's a regular thing? I don't know. The New
It's
Yorkers will have to tell me about that.
Yeah, it's definitely there. I mean, I just think it's like a taste thing, you know, like some people are just like behind on things. And Martine, I don't know. I don't want to say she's like people know who she is, but she kind of is like a hidden gem like here in the US. It's just not, you don't really see a lot of people wearing her stuff. So I think it just will
Yeah.
take a little more time for her like design language to like actually trickle into the like what people are wearing.
Yeah, I
And
think it's just
that's
her
fine.
her
This
No,
is
no,
what
you're
I
right.
mean.
Like her reference points are just really like, okay, I'll give you an example. So in this season, she had a second collaboration with Clarks,
Mhm.
which most people know, but if you don't know, it's like a very, very old British footwear brand. So she made like a slingback heel, a padded mule, and I think a padded Oxford shoe. And when you think of why it makes so much sense for Martine Rose to do a collaboration with Clarks, she has Jamaican heritage. Clarks are a shoe that are huge in Jamaica. And over the years, like there have been so many pop cultural references to Clarks. I mean, Vibes Cartel, Popcorn, they have songs dedicated to Clarks. Like in the UK, if you leave your house a few times a year, or you've gone out at least once in your life, you would have heard that. Like everybody, you have to ask me when you get me Clarks. Everyone knows that song. Everyone in the UK knows like that. You can't be from the UK and not know what that song is. So Clarks and Jamaican culture go hand in hand, and because there's such a Jamaican, massive Jamaican community in the UK, because like Windrush and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why, like in the UK, we would get that reference, and maybe in the US, maybe places like New York,
Yeah.
where they're like big Jamaican communities, they'll also understand that reference. Whereas maybe outside of like New York, it won't be something that is so obvious to people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just
Let me get
to
my
tee
point
that up,
on
I just hop
quickly.
back into tee up what you're saying. That like I
I w-
think because we're British, it's easy for us to forget to articulate that like there's so many varying degrees of Britishness to people who are obviously like from the US. Because obviously when we are talking about like Jonathan Anderson, we'll be like, oh, his clothes are so British and his collections are like rooted in teapots and blah 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 blah. But then Martine Rose is kind of like that other aspect of Britishness, which is like, you know, being from the Caribbean and Africa in diaspora in Britain and like growing up in the 80s and 90s. And like when you live here and you know those people, you see it in her clothes like immediately. Like I can't not see it in her clothing. But I think when you haven't been completely like surrounded in that environment, I understand why it's like harder to see. But funnily enough, I'd argue that JW Anderson and Martine Rose are equal levels of Britishness. They just tackle like different pockets of Britain.
Aspects of Britain, yeah.
I
Because
want to say
Martine Rose is
something.
more like
You not hearing me?
the diaspora, like yeah, we can hear you. Martine Rose is more of like the diaspora, like black culture. Also,
Exactly. Like,
outside of like black culture, like just rave culture, which is like majority white, to be fair. But it's very London. So, like the lens is very, very London. Whereas JW Anderson will look at like some company in Cornwall and like the pots and pans and pottery that they're making. So it's very, very British, but from two
like
different
Martine Rose
lenses.
is
Yeah.
very black people in diaspora. This is the kind of collection that my mum would look at and be like, "Oh yeah, this is swag." Whereas like if my mum, if my mum's looking at like that LV collection, my mum would be like, "Oh, what's going on?" But my mum would look at this and be like, "Oh yeah, like I get it, like I understand."
She'll probably say, "This is what we were wearing."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So in terms of like Martine Rose actually growing, there are a lot of British centered, well not centered, but people that start in Britain that can't grow past that $4 million cap, right? And that's in part of her business strategy, which is not necessarily her business strategy, but it's her group's like business strategy. And there is a way to grow Martine Rose's brand just the same way that JW Anderson's brand is grown, right? And partly that's through collaborations, but also it's through signifiers and just being consistent within Fashion Week. So there's a way that you can spend money to continually make shows so that your brand can actually grow, so that you're stocked in enough places that enough eyes are on your clothes. But it depends on what
Yeah.
Martine Rose's personal strategy is. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean financially, because I know people are saying like, "What's a customer?" I mean, Martine Rose, for example, she dressed like Team USA Women's Team. Like her Nike collabs are huge. Even people that don't really care for her clothes or wear her clothes or even really know who she is are still wearing her Nike collabs. Like the girlies be wearing the Nike Shock mules. Like it's like there's no
The ones with
tomorrow.
the heel a
Literally,
little bit. The ones
like
with
yeah. I've
yeah,
seen those in LA and all over the world. Like the girlies be wearing that like there's no tomorrow. So it also depends what aspect of the brand. Are we seeing the girls in New York wearing the really boxy blazers in mass? Probably not. Are we seeing them wearing the Nike Shox mules? Yes. Are we seeing them wearing the football jerseys? Yes. So I think it just depends of like what aspect of Martine Rose's work. Like Martine Rose is like known for mules, for example, and loads of people wear her mules, like loads. So I think it just depends what aspect of Martine Rose we're talking about.
Like I was saying, I think I definitely understand why if someone who's not from London or from the UK told me, oh, they didn't really get
Yeah.
it and they didn't understand the appeal, I'd understand that because it is like, to an extent, it's niche, I guess, in that sense of like, at the end of the day, the UK is tiny compared to the US or like Asia and different regions there.
Yeah, even down to like, because Khalif said obviously as a West Indian, it's just like old clothes and back home retwisted. Her collabs do better. The thing about, let's say, Jamaican culture in the UK, it's very UK Jamaican specific in terms of Jamaican culture in New York is actually very different to Jamaican culture in the UK because of how like Jamaican culture is still through the lens of Britishness. And if you think of like historically when Windrush happened, a lot of Jamaicans felt like they had to sort of assimilate, for lack of a better term, to be accepted in British culture. So what Jamaican culture is like very unique and a fusion of Britishness in the Jamaican culture. So it's very different to like anywhere else. And that's what we're saying. Like, this is what Martine Rose references is quite unique to like from a British lens.
I will say though, there is a way to communicate what Martine creates to a wider demographic. It's just that that strategy hasn't been executed amongst her group, and just the growth strategy that the
Who
Martine
owns
Rose
Martine Rose? It's
representing.
Tomorrow Group, right? I think it's
They're
Tomorrow
ones
Group.
that own a Cold War. Yeah.
Yeah. Tomorrow Group. Let me just check. Tomorrow Group, Martine Rose. Yeah. So it is owned by Tomorrow Group still.
So my notes. But yeah.
They own like Charles Jeffrey Loverboy too, right?
Yep. A Cold War.
Yeah.
I believe they've
Let me go on. I'm going on their website. I'll have it up now. So A Cold War, Charles Jeffrey Loverboy, Martine Rose. Those are like their main. Copani as well. Yeah, I've never been to Carney in New York, so I don't know what Carney in New York is like. Although it must be mentioned that Carney is actually Trini, not Jamaican. Obviously, like we've adopted it as like a Caribbean thing, but it's like Trini, not Jamaican. I don't want the people from Trinidad and Tobago to be on my neck. Someone said, to give your credit, I'm from California and I don't get her niche. Yeah, which is fair enough. I think that's up to Tomorrow Group and the people that work there to really, explain that to a global audience. And how successfully they do that will obviously determine how big the brand gets and if it really does have the serious crossover appeal. Because as a brand, the two places you really want to cross over to are America and Asia. Those are the two places you want to cross over to. If you want to make loads of money, that is. Being a brand that's like cool and big in Europe is not going to make you much money.
Mm-hmm. I feel like she also just hasn't really like tackled that like the things that really like make you money, like the accessories, and like she hasn't had like a hit like bag or like a hit like accessory that really, I feel like that's what takes kind of like the smaller like niche-er designers like Matthew Williams when he was doing like Aleeks, like the belt buckle, like he had so many like key signatures that kind of like allowed him to go from like A to XYZ a little bit faster because he had so many like well selling. I feel like most people know Martine for the ready to wear. You know, she doesn't
Yeah,
really have any like
but
staple accessories or bags, and I feel like that would like really like help
this is the
broaden
thing, Caleb.
her range.
As soon as football jerseys came in, like I said this on Twitter as well. As soon as football jerseys came in, they should have pushed Martine Rose's football jerseys
Yeah.
and the striped shirts as well, but they didn't. And I don't know what happened. And I think that was a missed opportunity on their part because literally football jerseys have now been popping for a solid 2.5 years, 3 years, if you've really
Yeah.
been in. And people are buying vintage football jerseys also. The shirts also work really well, the striped shirts that Martine Rose makes. So these are fundamental to menswear. And yet there hasn't been a major push, even though her merchandise is literally in line with the way that people dress today. And
All
then
right.
she has jackets that have a twist on what people like the leather jackets and the double-breasted jackets that are out there. That's literally how the girls dress today. Like that double-breasted, like as I've seen one too many girls wearing like either a shawl lapel or double-breasted peak lapel, and it's but they're not pushing it. And that's the thing. This is like I don't know whose fault is. I'm not really here to place blame. However, there is a strategy that can be implemented to grow Martine Rose as a brand, and not just saying her as Britishness, because that, to be honest, yeah, that's her fundamentals. But the only reason why we're saying it like that is because she's culture and art, and there hasn't really been a real business strategy. And once there's
Yeah.
a real business strategy, we'll just be saying Martine Rose is like the quintessential menswear designer and pushes the culture forward. But really, as she exists today, she pushes it from the behind, like she pushes it from the back, and is a confidant to the greatest menswear designers.
But yeah, it's also even in the context of Martine Rose using football jerseys. Once again, it makes sense and she's been doing it before as a trend because in the UK, people just wear football jerseys casually because it's the biggest sport. Like people used to wear AstroTurfs with jeans, and that's obviously something that
I
people are
miss
like
that.
bringing back and
I
stuff.
miss that when the boys would put up with the Astros on casually.
It was a bit crazy to wear
In
the
hindsight,
Astros with the
it actually
jeans, but
in hindsight,
but people did it. People did it. Football, they're both the same. If you're not American, football means football. It doesn't mean soccer. Did someone say Astros while controlling a wine was wild times?
bro, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine wearing Astros while?
That's crazy.
That's a wild picture to paint. That's a wild picture to paint, bro. I can't even
While
really put that
holding
in
a
my head.
wine, that's crazy.
Yo, and then you've got the 60-degree lean onto your ankles, fam. And you're leaning back like that. you're giving it a cute angle, fam.
With the soul.
Whoa, Astros controlling a wine is mad. At least you've got ultimate traction. You've got perfect grip, so you can do some mad wine positions because the grip from the Astros is all the different angles.
I mean, I feel like we have this conversation. Oh, outside of the internet, we have this conversation a lot. But like, she's one of those designers, isn't it? That like, I just feel like she's incredibly consistent. She's probably one of my favorite British designers for sure. And I understand, especially now that we've done this live stream, I definitely understand a lot of the like questions and points that people in the comments are making, because I've always felt like she's a designer where like her name is so much bigger than her brand. The weight her name holds is so vast. I feel like every serious designer in fashion has the utmost respect for her, I imagine.
Yeah.
But her brand isn't moving to the levels that her respect is, if that so makes sense. And I've always thought that. But yeah, it's rare I see a Martine Rose collection where it doesn't hit a certain part of my brain, because obviously I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh, I saw this outside yesterday. Oh, I saw this like last week. Oh, my mom wears that. Oh, and like she manages to kind of, I mean, I was saying it in the comments too, but like To me, Martine Rose is very streetwear in the sense of like a purist version of the term, not like, oh, this is what urban people wear or this is what black people wear, but streetwear in the sense of like she makes clothes that people wear on the street. Like this is street fashion, this is street culture. And she always manages to embody that in the on the runway so effectively, in my opinion. Yeah. But I think I'd like to see her be bigger in the US, honestly.
Just to buttress your point, people buy her ready to wear. That can't be said for many designers.
Oh, yeah. No, I wasn't. I mean, even in the comments, I've been saying, oh, because I think someone asked, like, do people even buy Martine Rose? And I was like, yes, people.
They 100%.
Yeah, because there's another level of streetwear, right? Which is people can style your clothes.
Yeah.
That is what, like, that's what I was only saying it to add to your point, because, like,
not
many people can. Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. As in, like, because I mean, I didn't bother saying it earlier, but since we're on the topic, I might as well say it now. She's one of those designers that, like, her brand can't die per se. It might not perform at like the height the Tomorrow Group want it to perform or whatever. But like, it's not like there's never gonna come a day where she puts out a runway that is at the same level she has been, and people are gonna say these clothes are bad and not buy it. That's never going to happen. So it's just a weird one where, like, you know, you have these groups of people who are super enthusiastic and interested in fashion, like some of the people who are in the comments today or watching the live or blah, blah, blah. But she's a designer that's just not popping in their area the same way she is over here. But they have that thing of like, well, everyone's speaking about her with reverence. So they're like, wow, all these people love Martine Rose, and I've never seen Martine Rose on the street. None of my friends knowing about Martine Rose, blah, blah, blah. It's a weird pocket to be in that me personally, I can't relate to, because obviously I see Martine Rose all the time here.
You know, there may be people that are new to fashion from last year, saw your channel from the Fashion Week, you know, film that dropped last year, and like, are just, you know, experiencing one of these lives right now. So I want to apologize, you know, if I offended anybody's fashion knowledge. I don't usually like to do that. But that being said, like, there are people that are important to us in terms of fashion and the law of like what people actually had to fight for in streetwear. Like, Martine Rose has almost had her company like kind of just like not make any money several times within her career, as well as
since 2007. She's been around forever.
She's been around forever. And it's not just like, oh, she's like a journeyed like legend or whatever it is. It's like, no, she is great. She sells really well, and she's very valuable to not just fashion but to the menswear community, because you see her DNA spotted all around, like in terms of what people wear, not just today, but like what people also put on the runway. So that's just my thing on Martine. But yeah, like, you know, like I said, that there's some people that probably are just encountering like one of these lives for the first time, so let me tune in. So in reality, that's really the position that I want to take in this, instead of like, you know, being this all-knowing whatever fashion, because I already know I speak sharp anyways. So it's like, I don't want to like be like one of those elitist people, because we're here to share information.
Of course. Kelly said, if she goes away, she won't be missed. Just because something is not for you doesn't mean that she won't be missed. Like, Khalif, I think you've definitely made valid points. Like, some of the points you brought up are valid, but just because a brand isn't, let's say, popular somewhere, it doesn't mean it's irrelevant or no one's going to miss it. Not every brand is Louis Vuitton and is like a brand that everyone across the world knows and is making like tens of billions. Like, there will be small brands, medium-sized brands, and then massive brands. That's just how it goes. So yeah, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to cater to everyone for it to be good. The people that, you know, it caters to are still majority of a UK audience. And I think her next step for, let's say, Tomorrow Group to think about is how can they market her ideas into a more global market, especially in the US and Asia. That's if they want to make loads of money, if that's their goal, which it probably is. So yeah, those are like valid questions, and I think the questions brought up around that are definitely very valid.
Yeah, and if you want to hire me to consult on that tomorrow, anyone else, hit me up on my Instagram.
No, I think she's like just like right there too. I think she's so close to like the cusp of like something very special. I mean, her brand is special, but I think as far as appealing to like more people, I think she's just right there. Like a bag, sunglasses, like just something simple. Like I think will really like help propel her, in the right direction. Because ready to wear, I mean, I feel like that is what sells for her, but you have to have like an it bag. You have to have like some sort of accessory. If that's her goal.
She's one of the premier menswear designers, as I keep reiterating, and she also sells really well overseas. She just needs a wider audience, or should I say a strategy to hit a wider demographic, and probably maybe she doesn't even want that. Who knows?
No, that's what I was about to say. I was like, I can't speak to what the group want, but she doesn't really strike me as the type of designer that cares. Maybe she does. I don't know her personally, but like based on how her collections look and the way she operates and carries herself within fashion, I feel like she doesn't care. As long as she can always afford to continue to run her brand the way she wants to, I think she's more concerned about that. That's how it comes across to me, anyway.
I feel like that's a really cool idea too, because as a consumer, that just makes me like her and her product even more. The fact that she's not like doing too much or not caving into like the peer pressures that sometimes these like big conglomerates can push on you. And I feel like she's not like caving in, and she's really like sticking to her like ethos and her design language, and she's still doing it her way, which is important.
Yeah. What did Leo say? Her Nike collaborations are being sold here in South Africa. Maybe not everything, but some pieces, and I can see it slowly penetrating the market. Interesting.
And even to speak on her Nike collabs, that's not cap. Every single time she's collabed with Nike, it's banged and done well, at least around here. I remember, I don't know if were her Air Monarchs the first collab she did with Nike?
I think so. Yeah, it was Air Monarchs and like it was Air Monarchs and then those like Nike jerseys,
it's the Monarchs.
Ones.
It's the Monarchs.
Yeah, and then you have the shots.
Yeah.
Like every time she collabs with Nike, it does well. Like it really does well.
This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.